So she says it for us. Okay, perfect. So we're just going to wait a few moments whilst people start coming into the room, and then we will get going quite soon. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we definitely want to give everyone a chance to also ask their questions. Hopefully, the way we are doing it will allow us to try and address your questions whilst we are asking the panel questions as well. And you'll get to know a bit more about us as well, but we definitely want everyone to be engaged, hence we've done it in this style and not in a webinar style. So thank you so much for coming. Yeah. I need to turn off Teams. All right, bear with me for a second. And yeah, for anybody who's just come in now, I know we're slowly admitting people as they're coming in. If you didn't hear it before, the session will be recorded. Feel free to have your cameras on, but please do mute yourself in the meantime until you put your hand up and we give you the floor to ask the questions. We will be having 3 Q&As as part of our talks because we have separated it into 3 different sections.
Hi, Saga. Nice to meet you. Guys, feel free to introduce yourselves via chat if you don't feel comfortable talking. Hi, Hafsa.
Hi, Hafsa.
Oh, wow. You work with premature babies and soon starting your master's.
Oh.
Hi, Pfizer. So Pfizer's working as a research officer. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Samarowit? Sorry if I'm butchering it. I'm not that great.
It's Samarowit.
Samarowit. Perfect.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Hi, May. Oh, wow.
Hi everyone. Looking forward to the session.
Nice to meet you.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Ilham, Haleema, I think it might be worth for us to start because I know we have a lot to cover, and we can always let people know in the chat sort of what we've done so far and if they've missed out on anything. So we'll just do it like that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Amran and I'll introduce myself properly over the next couple of slides alongside my panel members, Haleema and Ilham. So we've decided to do this session today on Behind the Titles, Building Your Career as a Young Black Woman in the UK. As 3 young Black women, we thought it would be useful to kind of share our stories in an open space where a lot of people could come and hear a bit more about how we got to where we are today. We're doing it through the Young Emerging Leaders Collective, which I'm a part of. We're a group of young so-called emerging leaders from across the UK at the moment. We were originally dominated in London, but the pandemic has allowed us to expand. And we come under the Ubele initiative, who's sort of incubated our project, and we've been around for almost 2 years now. And I'll drop the link in the chat in a moment to our website. We're also taking applications at the moment if you want to join us. We do podcast events like today's. We meet on a regular basis as well. And yeah, it's really great to be part of such a beautiful organization, especially the Ubele initiative. So I'll definitely drop those links in the chat for you guys so you can get to know a bit more about them. But yeah, without further ado, let's start. There you go. And hopefully you guys should be able to see the slides. So that's me and my big face right there. I'm Amran. I'm a research project manager and currently working at the NHS, but under a COVID-19 grant. I did a Master in Public Health in 2019 to 2020, so bang in the pandemic. So a great masters to have right now because the skills are in high demand. But I previously had a STEM background as well. I worked in academia and pharmacy, and my current work is around designing and delivering interventions that are culturally appropriate through public health messaging for ethnic minority communities in the UK. As I said, I'm part of the Young Emerging Leaders Collective, and we do quite a lot of things. And it's given me the chance to also host my own conversations. We've done International Women's Day workshops and festivals as well. And most recently, I joined the Al Shark Youth Fellowship, which is a 9-month program, sort of developing the next generation of young leaders globally. That's me in a nutshell. And I'd like to introduce our next panelist as well, Ilham Hassan. She's currently a business analyst, and she graduated from Queen Mary University with a degree in global public health. So both of us have a public health background, but she's done a lot of things. So she's very interdisciplinary, from global drug legislation to international health development. She's actually moving into the tech sector, which is something that a lot of people may have some questions about. So definitely she's one to watch. And I'm really excited for us to be joined by her today as well. We actually met at a global summit on the other side of the world in Malaysia in 2020, just before the pandemic. So it's actually amazing to see what you can get up to during doing a year abroad as well. So if anybody has any questions about doing a year abroad, definitely pose those questions later to Ilham as well. And hopefully the rest of this paragraph here kind of goes into what she's about, but I hope I did you justice, Ilham.
Yeah, no, you've done it better than I could, to be fair.
And lastly but not least, this is Haleem Mahmood. She's currently an Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator. She's got a background in psychology, and she did her BSc at Manchester Metropolitan University. She also worked for the Student Union at the university in Diversity and Inclusion, and she's now also an Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator, but she's done a lot more than that. She's been involved in community organizations and community work. And most recently, I think you've been working with the Ubele initiative as a peer researcher, addressing challenges and opportunities faced by minorities in the UK manual trade sector. But she has a huge background in mental health. So anybody who's here who'd like to know more about mental health or equality, diversity and inclusion, please do give her a shout and ask any questions. We'll leave all of our contact details at the end as well. But I actually have it somewhere here. So if you want to take a screenshot now, you can. But what we'll do is I'll post the links in the chat as well, whilst our next speaker will be talking. So yes, that is us and a quick introduction. I'll stop sharing the screen because I think it might be nicer just to have your full face when you're speaking, but we'll spotlight each other in a moment as well. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Guys, do you want to give thumbs up? Yes, I've seen a few thumbs up. That's great. But yeah, I will start off this part. So I'm just gonna spotlight. What is it working?
Let me give it a go, just so that we're all in the screen at once. Oh, okay. So you've
Working.
yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
right. Hopefully you can see all three of us now. But yeah, I'll be leading the first part of the section, and this will be around university life. So we're actually having a discussion last night, just kind of preparing for this. And Ilham said this statement, which I absolutely love, which is a letter to our younger selves. I guess from Ilham's aspect, it was kind of sharing our expertise and what we've kind of learned whilst we were at university and what we've done after we've graduated, and passing that baton on to you guys. So what we hope for you guys is once you guys develop on your skills, you're able to pass that baton on to future generations. But yeah, I think the first question to probably ask, and I'll answer it myself as well, is why did you study the course that you did? So if Amran, if you don't mind starting on that question.
Sure, thank you, Haleem. So I know I only mentioned in my introduction that I did public health, but that was actually quite recent. I did my bachelor's in biology, back in, I feel old now, 2014. I'm not that old, but you've got to think about it. For 3 years at Middlesex University in Hendon in North London. I did A-levels in biology as well. I did chemistry, but it wasn't my strong suit. I did psychology and economics. And biology was my favorite subject. I had an amazing teacher. And the other thing is, and maybe some of you guys might kind of relate to this, is that I was the first girl to go to uni in the family, to become a doctor, because that's kind of all of our parents know, becoming a doctor, engineer, lawyer. Even lawyer is a so-so these days, but yeah, those two at least, doctor and engineer, are like, yes, go and do that. I didn't have a strong maths background, and I knew it's quite difficult to go into something like that where you need chemistry and maths, and I already knew from the beginning when I joined year 12 that it wasn't going to work out doing medicine. Like I realized I didn't want to do it either. I didn't like blood, that too. So yeah, I did biology because I loved the study of life, plants, animals, and whatnot.
Amazing, thanks for sharing. Ilham, do you want to add anything to that question?
Yeah, essentially, I think like coming from minority backgrounds, like a lot of our parents push us toward the traditional roles, and I think I've had that similar experience. I thought I was gonna do medicine at one point, and I was like, wait, hold on, I think I like chemistry more, and then sort of global health fell into my lap in like the best way possible. But yeah, I wouldn't have known beforehand, and I'm so glad that I did take the course, and I did like enjoy like the core sciences, but moving into social science was so eye-opening for me, and I'm so glad that I took those steps to do so.
That's good, I'm glad. I think for my experience, it was at the beginning, I think when I was younger, they definitely did suggest those kind of typical traditional roles, like become a doctor, do dentistry, or like going into those kind of fields, because they knew that it was something established, like it was good pay, just the actual job role was seen as something like as a progressive career path and something that you can continuously do. But as we kind of got older, my parents like, just do whatever you want. So I kind of got lucky in that sense. So even though I had that little bit of a transition with, oh, you should do things that are typical and are good, to, do you know what, you can do whatever you want, do what makes you happy instead. So I'm so glad that I had that kind of experience, because I kind of got to experience both. So in terms of why I study psychology, I think it was more related to my own mental health. I really wanted to learn more about the brain and how we function and how we can influence the way that we feel, and what types of interventions, because for everything it works differently for everyone. So it's just like I really wanted to learn more about it, and I wanted to do that as a course. So that's the reason why I study psychology. Do you guys have anything else to add before I ask you the next question?
I think it'll come out naturally. Yeah, I think we'll probably extend our next few answers.
Good. So the next one was, how was your just the overall university experience?
I don't mind going.
Yeah, no, you go ahead. Yeah.
I actually really loved university, and I think it was also because of where I went. It was a very small cohort. It wasn't actually my first choice. So Ilham, I know you went to Queen Mary. Queen Mary was there because it was a Russell group. But in the end, I realized, and I think a lot of people will understand this once they go through the university process, that it's more about what you make of your time at uni and not always about where you go, although where you go sometimes does have an influence when you apply for jobs. But I think for personal experience, opportunities as well, I think I got more out of where I ended up going as my sort of second choice than my first choice. There was like 40 of us on the course. I think by the end there was 20 of us. I got to go to Mauritius twice as part of my degree, as field trips. I got to pick my own dissertation topic. There were quite a lot of opportunities here and there, but I think it's what I was saying about it before, about what you go out to seek. So for me, I went out to seek those extra things. Like going to Mauritius wasn't on the agenda for the sort of the pathway I was doing at the time. It was more for the people focusing on sort of the plants and the biodiversity side. But I like kind of campaigned and I said, look, I'm doing all of this for you guys. I really want to go, I want to experience this. And then I went again because I did it as part of my dissertation. So I think for me overall, my university experience was quite positive. It had its downs, but I think overall it was quite good.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad. I think I would probably say the same, but apart from I was kind of limited in terms of the university choices, just because my parents wanted me to stay closer to home. So I was only able to kind of consider. So I'm from Bolton, so I was only considering the Greater Manchester / Liverpool area in terms of universities in Preston. So the particular reason why I chose Manchester Metropolitan was because of the positive feedback that students had given, saying that they felt that they were really supportive in terms of the lecturers that they had, particularly within the psychology department. I feel like that was one thing that I was on the lookout. I really wanted to make sure that the university and the course that I was doing was like, you did get a lot of support from it, because I think when you go into university, there's this image that's kind of shared where it's just like you have to do everything independently, and I'm just like, but you're going into something that you've never done before, and it's really important to have that support in place. And the fact that it was dead in the city centre, I love that, and I wanted to be in that kind of environment. So that's the reason why I kind of picked the university that I picked, and overall my experience was really good. How about you, Ilham?
Oh, that's quite interesting, because I guess for my case, I wasn't really limited for geographies. Like I was like, oh, get me out of London as soon as possible. But obviously that did not happen. And I guess for like my degree, and it wasn't, not to say first choice, but I didn't even know that I was gonna go to Queen Mary. And like for me at first, it was like, okay, I just need to get into a uni, because essentially I went through clearing. And yeah, so once I got there, my focus was like, how do I make the most out of this opportunity? Like it sort of fell into my lap, so I took it as a blessing. And from like the jump, I was at that international students office trying to find out what opportunities they had and when I could take them on. And like, I'm so glad that I went to a university that offers a depth and breadth of opportunities. But I think that's sort of like depends on the person themselves and whether they're willing to go out and get those opportunities. So yeah, so that was, apologies, I actually even forgot the question, but it was about my university experience. So I'd say my one was quite good, and because my department was quite small, it was easier to navigate, you know, what classes we found useful, what classes we found absolutely useless, and how to implement improvements in the future, whether that's even going to happen or not. And yeah, it was lovely having that small group of people, because then, you know, you get to do projects with them, then get to know your lecturers on a more personal level, because the group I was in was quite small as well. And sort of when opportunities came up, like I got to go to Malaysia twice, and we got to go to New York as a group. Yeah, so we did a lot of projects together, and that sort of came because of the university having those projects, and also being quite lucky that we had a small cohort.
That's good. I feel like mine was completely opposite on that side. The cohort was massive. There was like 300 plus students, and that was just a psychology on its own, because we obviously had combined honours as well. So when they say this, what's the term? Lost in the crowd. That's 100%. Like it's very easy to feel that way if you're not that type of person to be outgoing, or not the type of person to kind of start a conversation. Whereas with me, I was like, wow, there's hundreds of us. Like I need to push my way. Like I need to navigate through it. So luckily for me, my personality, I was able to do that. But I think for some people who also studied the same course as me in the university that I studied, but I feel like it's generally the same across the whole of the UK. Just psychology in itself, there's just really big cohorts, which is a shame, because you feel like you miss out on that kind of aspect, the smaller group cohorts that you kind of mentioned. But yes, I'll go on to the next question. Was there anything that surprised you when you did become a student, or like something that you weren't expecting?
Oh, should I start? Yeah, something that surprised me was the lack of formality. Like you're so used to in school calling your teachers like Miss, Mr, Mrs, what have you. But like at uni, it's like, oh, call me by my name, and it gets, I don't know, for me it was just a bit awkward at the beginning, and I think it's something you get used to, because at the end of the day, like once you start off in tertiary education, there's no longer that sort of hierarchy. It's more of like a collaboration. Like these people aren't just your teachers, but they're people that you could potentially work with in projects that you might be interested in. So yeah, I think that was one of the most shocking things, and also that sort of leap in to educating yourself rather than someone educating you, like putting a lot of time and effort into doing readings, assignments. Yeah, that was kind of a shock for me personally. But also the autonomy of just getting around. I guess things were limitless in terms of like what you could do, where you could go. So yeah, that was something that I noticed. Yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think it was probably like not checks on you, but like no one is what's the term, how can I say it? So do you know how like when you go in college, like if you've got set homework or coursework to do, like you have a teacher that follows you up with that, whereas in university you don't really have that. It's like it goes back to what you said, the autonomy and the independence, like it's all on you. Even though like it's not surprising, you know that, but you just feel like there's a gap that's missing, that I feel like they should have transitioned a little bit better between college and university. And I feel like that's one thing that I wish they did that at least during the first year, because usually in certain degrees the first year doesn't count towards your degree, so you would think you'd get the most support from them, and then have that transition period for you to become more independent. I think that was one surprising thing for me. How about yourself, Andrea?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you both have said. I just feel like it was so long ago that I don't even remember when I first started. It's because I've done my master's now, so that's like the last freshest thing in my head. But when I was doing my undergrad, I think I think it's the whole thing about you having to do everything yourself, even though you could be doing stuff with the group or whatever, but at the end of the day it's up to you to submit your assignments on time. Like there's no leniency either. Like I remember in school, if there was like a bit of coursework and 1-2 you're a bit behind, it's okay, somebody will help you and whatnot. But at uni there was support. I'm not gonna lie, I think the support was there because we had like graduate academic assistants, which were like teaching assistants at a graduate level who had done the degree before. And then we also had something called student learning assistants, who were like the year above, who would be in the most difficult like classes. Like for us, like chemistry, for instance, was probably the module that most people hadn't done so well in. So we had that, like we could go there. So it's not like it was like, I don't want to say for anybody here that might be still studying or is about to start uni, which I don't think is the case, but it might be, like don't think that there's no support, but it just really depends on where you go. I think the more people there are in your cohort as well, the more difficult it could become to locate that kind of support, because it will become like group sessions. I don't know, Haleem, if you ended up doing that, or if you had like drop-ins where you could go and see your lecturer or like another member of staff in the department.
Yeah. So in the first year they had seminars, which I absolutely loved, and it was smaller cohorts, and from there you were able to kind of connect with your lecturers and on a better level than the lecture room, which you had 300 students. And then they had office hours, allocated time. I'm not going to lie, during my first year I did not take advantage of that at all. I just thought I would go to class and then come back and I'll just do my work on my own. And it wasn't until I went into second year that I realized, you know what, like I'm falling a little bit behind and I really needed that support system. But yeah, I can definitely go into that with the employability section, where I do talk about my internship and how that internship really helped me develop as I was studying in my course. But yeah, that's great. Thank you, Amran, for that. The next question I'm going to ask is there anything that you learned about university? Actually, just looking at the timings, maybe this question will probably be best. So how do you make the most of the opportunities available at uni? And just like as a follow-up question is, how do you look for such opportunities like that? Anyone can go first.
Ilham, do you want to go? Because I feel like you're the only one that did a year abroad, right?
Yeah, so I will definitely go for that. So I guess before my year abroad there was also a different opportunity to go to Malaysia, and essentially when I first did that opportunity it was free. everything was paid for. So I was like, why not? Let me just apply. And I'd always say, like, even if you're not in uni right now, when you're at work and there's a training opportunity somewhere, just do it. Like, commitments would always come either way, but try your best to get your feet into it, because you never know what doors that would open for you. And so that was the first partnership between my university and the university I then went to when I lived in Malaysia. And that sort of eased my way into the application process of doing the year abroad, rather than having like a 3-page document on why I should be the best candidate. It was much easier because I had already done it with that university. And so that process and that placement and sort of that relationship was there. And first thing I guess you should always try and do is establish that relationship so that you could take advantage of it later on. And so, yeah, I had the opportunity to do a year abroad, which then allowed me to do other things like volunteering, working internally with other departments within the uni, which, I'm not gonna lie, when I'm in an interview, no one really asks me about my how great I could be at a job. Everybody's too busy asking me about what I did for my year abroad. And that's, I guess, one of the easiest parts of applications for me, because I don't have to go through that rigorous question of why are you compatible, why are you good with us, why would you be a good fit for us. Rather, people are too interested in how I did my year abroad, what that entailed. And I guess that's an example of taking advantage of opportunities, but also there are other things that are available at uni that you could also take advantage of. And I think that's something that Haleema can talk more in depth about.
Yes, definitely. I think in terms of extracurricular activities, I would say is get involved in anything and everything, whatever you enjoy. Even if you feel like you're not going to enjoy it, take the opportunity. If you've got the time, do it. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because you might end up liking something that you think you weren't gonna like, and that was for me. Obviously I said in my first year I didn't really do much. However, I kind of had a reality check during my the summer of my first year, and going into my second year, where I realized, you know what, apart from this university degree that I have, what else do I have to put forward that I can sell myself to showcase my skills? And from that kind of moment, it was like a light bulb moment where I was just like, do you know what, I need to get more involved in extracurricular activities. So I was connecting with my lecturers and saying, oh, is there any projects that you're doing at the moment that I can get involved in? Just doing that on the side can be really useful, because just like Ilham mentioned, that connection can get you to other places that you were never going to expect at all. So I feel like that would be my one advice, is connect with your lecturers to a level where you can have conversations with them, and it's not just about work, it's about other things, because you can find out more about their interests, and from there they can connect you with other people, because you might study a course and you might completely change your mind and say, I actually want to do something completely different to this, but they might have connections that you feel like you would have not known if you didn't ask those kind of questions to them and said, oh, I'm actually interested in this, I'm interested in that. So I definitely say is, if you're not confident, just speak to them on a one-to-one basis. I think that would be my best suggestion for you. I think another question that I probably want to ask quickly just before we go on to the Q&A is, what was the best thing that you about university, and what was the worst thing you did about university, basically? Just one quick.
I think the best thing for me was being able to apply what I learned in the classroom and taking that abroad. Because I didn't do a year abroad, but I think I did about a month in total for both trips in Mauritius. And I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for uni, because going to Mauritius is expensive. Like, we went there, and like, I think the first time it cost me £350 for 2 weeks. That's nothing. That's not even a flight ticket. But if there's anything like that available at uni, or even if you can petition for it or say we want more experiences, the money is there 80% of the time. I'd say things may have changed slightly now, but if you're the type of person that wants to get out there but you're not sure how, it's always worth asking, because even now I think they're changing it slightly, but things like Erasmus, I think they're turning it into a UK version now. But if you're still in uni, do keep your eye out on that, because that's another way where you can be funded to do a work placement, or like a study abroad kind of thing. So there's things there, but I think if you don't ask, you'll never get. And I definitely say that that was probably the best part for me about going out there. The worst part, Oh, what was bad about my day? Do you know what? I think the first time I had to defer like stuff wasn't even for like a bad reason or anything like that. It was literally because I went to Mauritius and it was during exam season, but it's the first time they did it, so they couldn't change the dates. And it meant that I ended up having to spend my summer like not even redoing stuff, attempting things for the first time. So my second year of uni, I was planning on like doing the most, doing whatever, but I was studying. So I think that was probably like that was my second to last big break I would have gotten, right? I didn't really have that because I was out here doing exams and coursework. So I think that was the only sort of major downside. I had an amazing time in my undergrad, guys. If I could do it again, I would, even though 3 years of your life.
Yeah.
What about you, Ilham?
I guess the best part of sort of making a network of friends that are sort of on your same wavelength in terms of what they want to do in life, and having the opportunity again to go abroad, which was always a blessing and a curse, because sort of that visa application process, because a lot of people usually
unpaid PA.
sorry, a lot of people would ask, why didn't you choose to go America? And I think, as you said, like there is always funding available at university. You just have to be smart about how you go about it, what would be most feasible for you. And I'm so glad that I took that opportunity, but also I had the opportunity to get the university involved in other projects that I was doing so that I could get funding from that, which was also amazing. But yeah, in terms of the West thing, I guess it's gonna have to come with hindsight. I've only just graduated a couple of months ago, so I don't really have an answer for that just yet. What about you, Halima?
No, I think the best thing would definitely be the connections that I've made. Some of the people that I've met are very close friends and dear to me right now. It's something that I feel like is unfortunate for some people who have started studying based because of COVID, and they don't have that kind of connection with their peers, because they're having to do it remotely. And I feel for them. I honestly do, because I don't know how my life would be if it wasn't for the people that I have around me right now. So I'll probably say that is the best thing. The worst thing was I wish I started sooner. I wish I knew about things sooner. If I'd started at the beginning of my first year, maybe things might be a little bit different. Maybe I might be a bit ahead of myself than I wanted to, at this current moment in time. But at the same time, I'm thinking, do you know what? Whatever's happened for a reason. And it was the right timing for me at that time. So I think I wouldn't say it's the worst, but it's maybe something that I'd want to change a little bit. But yeah, I'm just looking at the time, but I wanted to have a little Q&A section for universities. So if anyone has any questions, or you can just send it on the chat, or you can unmute yourself, and we'll answer those questions.
I think someone said that they applied actually for university in the chat. If you do have a question specifically, because I think this section might be quite relevant to you, feel free to ask us questions. You can also if anybody wants to ask a question but they don't want to unmute themselves or go on the camera, you can also send us a direct message in the chat. And if we don't have time now, we can always come back to it later as well. But I feel like maybe a lot of people here have actually come for the sort of employability part. So what we can do, if nobody puts their hand up now, we can just continue to the next section, and then we can come back to any questions. If you just DM us, then we'll know that we still need to address.
Rev,
you've got a hand up. Yeah, go ahead. Perfect.
Hi, thank you so much for being here with us, and I personally appreciate your coming and whatever you've been sharing. I really appreciate that. Now, I applied. I'm a mother, and I have a church that I'm learning, and I'm also learning other projects within the community. I deal with women experiencing domestic abuse as well as female genital mutilation survivors. I've been in counseling and working within the community for over 25 years now. Now I'm back home in my country. I did higher diploma in counseling psychology. I did that. But now I have applied here. I want to go to uni back. I want to do my degree and to progress, specifically because I want to be able to feel more equipped with the work that I do within the community and within the church. But now the fear of will I make it, because when I was doing my higher diploma, it was such a challenge because I conceived without my knowing. So with my pregnancy, I was doing my higher diploma, but at least I managed. And when I was doing the last exams, I was doing with my baby was 3 days old, so I couldn't go within the uni with my husband to stay with the baby when I do the exam. Now it was such a challenge that it brought some traumatic moments in my life, and when I think of going back, it's like something is triggered. Those moments there, it's like I relive them, and obviously I'm not expecting to get another pregnancy during that, but there is that trigger that is coming with I relive the moment of the way I was sitting down in class because I could not sit down because of the pregnancy. All that keeps coming, and now I'm like, what if I go and waste all my time with all this? So my question is, how can I overcome that, or how is that life in uni now here? Because that was back in my country, but now here might it be much worse than where I've come from? And should I go on, or should I stop? So I'm in between. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing your experience. I think for me personally, just a little bit of advice that I would give is um, um, take it in stages. So maybe like when you're applying, whichever whoever is like the team lead, have like a discussion and see if you can sit in one of those classes. Just a couple of times, just so you kind of get comfortable and you get used to how university life is right now. And there's a lot of students who are mature students who are going back to university, and it is a place for everyone. I think what I'd definitely suggest is do it in stages, so you don't have to go back straight away, or potentially you can do it part-time. But also if you feel like it's something traumatic that's really really impacting you, you feel like you need to go through it with someone, and potentially having some sort of counseling or therapist, just so that you can have that discussion and that safe space to kind of talk about all the experiences that you had and change the way your thinking patterns is, so that you feel more comfortable to go into the university space again. But yeah, does anyone else have anything to add to that? Amrit and Ilham.
I think, although I'm not really in the same situation, I did feel like I put off doing my master's for a couple of years because my third year of uni was very taxing in my head. I realize this now. I don't know why. I think I put it to the back of my mind when you asked that question earlier on, Halima, about some of the bad, like what was the worst. I think it was just a lot for me to take in, and there was so much happening at the same time, and I was traumatized by my dissertation. So it took a long time for me to not necessarily get over that, but to build the courage towards making that decision to do my master's. And I realized that if I wasn't going to do my master's, I would be stuck in the same area and position that I would be. And like you mentioned earlier on, Rev Julia, you said how, it would help support your community. I kind of thought of it like that, but I think you also need to think about it yourself. So if that means, talking to somebody about it before you make that jump, or if you need to wait a little bit longer, like there's no harm in it. There's no rush, because I think sometimes we forget that we all put our community first, but then we forget that we also have to put ourselves first. And if we're not in the right mindset to do something, your experience might not be the same as if you were ready to do it. But again, there's no right time to do some things. So I think maybe weigh up the pros and cons and think, okay, I think I'm ready to do it, and I think I can do it. But like Halima said, I think definitely trial it if you can, and also see if you can seek support whilst doing it, because there are support services at university. I don't know how they are at the moment because of COVID. I don't know if there's anything in person, but there is support inside of university and outside that you can seek at the same time. Don't think that you'll be doing it alone, if that makes sense. I know from the beginning we were speaking like that, but at the same time I did want to try and reiterate there are services available. I think for a lot of us we just didn't know that they existed. Sorry.
No, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah, I just wanted to add to that and say, like, Julia, you've like you're just stunning, like from everything that you said, like getting yourself through that diploma and starting all these initiatives. And I think that's amazing. And I think with that drive, you can just continue on. And obviously those difficulties do exist, and feel free to reach out if you need any help or if we can assist you in any way. These spaces are sort of open for that, and you seem to have like the drive to get through it, and you definitely will do. But yeah, as Amran said, like the sort of help at university is definitely available, even for mature students with dependents, and yeah, that's definitely available. And maybe we might have not emphasized that as much, but yeah, it definitely is. And I'd say take full advantage of it. Don't feel ashamed, go out and get it. And also I think student finance also has extra aid for students with dependents, and definitely go for that. And yeah, you're doing amazing. Like I'm
Thank you.
speechless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But yes, what I'm going to do is now pass it on to Ilham, and she will be doing the second session on employability.
Yeah, so hi everybody. So can I just have like a show of emojis of who's in sort of the job market and early professional people, sort of straight out of uni recently? Like if you could just show me an emoji, any emoji. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a tricky time for all of us. So yeah, I hope this is going to be a fruitful discussion, and please feel free to like comment, show your emojis, interact with us. So yeah, generally I think we're also in a time where that sort of graduate depression would be settling in. But yeah, as we move on to the new year, I just hope like our words of advice would be really useful. And I'm literally going through the process right now, and Amran she'll explain it herself, and Haleem is employed, but we'll all be here to sort of support you. So the first question I'd like to ask is what did you do to further your employability outside of your university course? So whether that be internships, part-time jobs, career services, mentorships, volunteering. Let me start with Halima.
So just going back to what I said earlier, so during the summer of my first year, I had kind of a reality check. I was like, oh, I need to do more outside of my university degree. So I kind of started it off in stages. I already kind of had like a little bit of a timeline in my head. I was like, I'm going to do volunteering first because I've never worked before, and like a paid job. So I was like, let me build up that experience first. And I wanted to go into mental health. So I started volunteering for a local organization, and it was just outside of my university, so I knew it was accessible for me. So like straight after lecture I can go there, volunteer for half the day, and then go home after that. So like I was very strategic in terms of my plan. And then after a couple of months of me volunteering, I thought, okay, this is the next step for me. So I progressed by getting a job, but I really wanted to get a job within university because of that accessibility. So I decided to, sorry about that, my notifications are coming through. So I decided to apply for a job within the union and the university, and it started off with the diversity and inclusion project, which I absolutely love, and I loved taking part in that kind of 2-year period. So I developed myself from volunteering to working in a job, and then another opportunity came about, and it was within my own university, and they said they had a summer internship. So I was like, okay, this sounds like a good idea, and why don't I get involved in it? So like I said earlier, never limit yourself, try everything and anything, whatever opportunities come about, just try it out. So that was my mindset during my second year of uni. So I did the internship and managed to get in. It was only 10 places, but obviously it's like 300 of us. So it was quite competitive, but I feel like that didn't stop me, because I'd rather have applied and not get it than regret it afterwards and thinking, oh, I wish I applied. So I did that over the summer, and I feel like that summer, which was about 10 weeks, I think, it was paid, so it was great. I was getting paid. It was a paid job. It was a research assistant job, and not only that, I really connected with my lecturers, because I was always in the hallway. That really helped with my third year. of like support that I needed with my essays, with just like modules and stuff, my dissertation. So I was able to connect with my lecturers and they were able to further support me. So I kind of like put it into stages. Like some of the statements that you mentioned earlier, Ilham, I fully took advantage of everything apart from the mentorship one. I did get in contact with the careers service to try and look for further opportunities, and I had applied for further opportunities within university as well. I think one good idea about university jobs is the pay is a lot better than the typical kind of part-time jobs, the retail assistant, and it also means it isn't as consistent. Like you don't have to do it on a weekly basis, so you could do it as like an ad hoc, so whenever you're available. So that was like my pluses on that. So I knew, like, let's say for example I had an assignment that I really needed to work on, because it was at an ad hoc basis, like I didn't have to take on projects that I couldn't do at that time. So there was a lot of flexibility on that. So I really made sure to broaden my horizon, and apply for different types of experience, not just limiting yourself to jobs. Do internships, do volunteering, get involved in societies. And that was another thing that I did. I got involved in with the ISOC society at my union, and it was a good way because of the fact that I was working already in the union. I was able to kind of establish that relationship with the societies within the organization. So yeah, that'll be kind of my experience. Yeah.
I'll add one, two little things because I know we're kind of short of time, but it's quite important. I did pretty much everything that Haleem did in terms of, trying to make the most of it. I used to be a wallflower at school, by the way. I hated being in the spotlight, and now you look at me, right? Yeah, I don't know how I do it, but the reason why I'm a busy bee today is because of uni. So I had a part-time job when I first started. So I had a part-time job since year 12. So I worked in retail. And I continued that because it was Sundays only, like my contract that no longer exists. I don't know how they used to do that, but that was back in 2012, guys. That's, oh my God, almost 10 years ago. It's a long ass time, So I was doing that, and I also volunteered every Tuesday during sixth form, and I kind of continued that, but it was quite difficult to uphold because I was volunteering in my local area in South London, but I went to uni in North. So I remember, running home from not even running home, running to not even the volunteer centre, somewhere else, because I used to do the pickup of the kids. I used to work for CARAS, a community organisation for asylum seekers and refugees. So I did that, and then I managed to uphold those two and study in my first year of uni. But like Halima, I realised that I should not just be going to uni to study and running home, to work or to do that stuff. So I became a student ambassador at the end of my first year, and that had like a flexible contract. It was good money. It was like 0 hours. You just work. I worked open days. They started, taking people on to do clearing during the summers. I don't think I did that. I used to work full time during the summers, guys. I was making my money. It wasn't even that much money, but I was making something because
It's always better than nothing, isn't it?
A little bit, and a little bit of independence. It's like you can't stop. And yeah, I continued that job until after I graduated. Actually, I only finished in 2018 and I graduated in 2017. So I was employed with them for ages. But what I was going to add was the thing about mentorship. So I went to uni where, I don't know about you guys as university cohort, we were quite diverse, but our staff wasn't, which is kind of expected because they've been in the university system for a very long time. So we had one Black woman, one Egyptian lady, and any other sort of mix of non-British were European staff. We had a lot of European stuff like French, Dutch, Italian. It was quite nice, but it meant that you didn't see yourself at uni. And I seeked mentorship outside of uni because I realized I was not going to get it there. People could speak to you, they could try and help you, but you can't be what you can't see, right? Or you can't imagine yourself being something that you can't see. Not to say that you can't be what you, anyway, you get what I'm saying. And I got onto this mentorship program, which was run by Somalis. So it was a Somali mentorship program called ISWADA, which means lead together. And that was towards the end of my degree. So it took me almost 3 years to get any sort of formal mentorship. And that probably changed everything for me because she was working at UCL. She was a research fellow. She did a bit of teaching. So I kind of followed her footsteps to an extent. So I think mentorship is really important. And if you can't find it there, now you have the beauty of LinkedIn. Like, slide into them DMs. If you see someone that you aspire to be like, 99% of the time they'll respond to you, because people actually like being approached. But people just don't feel like they can because, oh, this person has 1K connections on LinkedIn. So yeah, I was also going to say, which is what I'm going to be talking about after we do this section, about networking and LinkedIn. So we'll definitely get onto that shortly as well.
Yeah, that's, guys, that sounds great. And I think similarly, I was a very busy person at university in terms of like doing a part-time job, working different projects, like doing internships. Getting the big boy internships is very difficult, and I think everybody, like when you're first at uni and you try out, you know, doing the I think it's spring days and the summer internships, and you're like, oh, my A levels are not really giving what they're supposed to give. So alternatively, what I decided to do to make sure like my application stands out, and also just to build within myself, is to do internships with really small organizations, or organizations that required you to teach English in different countries, and things like that. I mean, as long as you word it properly, it will sound fantastic on your CVs. But also volunteering, taking on different roles within your part-time job. And I was talking to a recruiter recently for this very big consulting firm, and basically she said, your 3 years of university, that counts as work experience. So like doing those 3 years is a form of work experience. It depends on how now students are able to work with the skills that they've gained, and to write it out in a way that makes it seem as if they've been doing more than they actually have. But my point is, obviously, if you have a part-time job, like, don't feel like that's not enough. It's more than enough. Like, you're actually working towards something, whether that be money or sustaining yourself. But also there's so many soft skills that you could only ever learn at a job, if that makes sense. Like, you could never learn the soft skills while volunteering, and you couldn't learn it anywhere else. So yeah, and also in terms of like having a mentor, I used a program that's run by my school, like Arc Academy. If you went to a London school academy, like they have these mentorships where like the school will partner up with like people that have been in industries for over 10 years, and they've sort of put you together, and that person sort of becomes a friend, and like throughout your journey. And the person I have I've been with her for like a year, but it's so useful to see the things that, and the questions that you have, and you think, oh, no one can really answer this question, no one understands it, but you find someone's gone through that issue 10 years ago, and they be the best person to give you advice. So always seek out mentorships, and I think we'll talk about it in the networking section, like how to properly like utilize that. So just to wrap, I know we had a lot of questions for this section, but just to like sort of wrap it up, how did you find getting into the workforce? How was that for you, and what advice would you give people, and how did you sort of build the gap between education and employment? And lastly, like, what do you feel, I guess from your perspective, what recruiters are looking for the industries you guys have worked in? Yeah, whichever one, whoever wants to start can go ahead.
Am I on this slide for you? I think for me, just a quick overview. I actually didn't, well, there was a job that I was considering, and that was a job within the union. So it was as a student officer. So my original plan was, straight after university, I would hopefully get this role, and it would be a post for 1 year. It was a wellbeing officer. I unfortunately didn't get it. I was second place, me and my team, but we still like ran for it because we knew that was something that we wanted to do, and we really wanted to implement positive things within university life for students. I think because of that, and because of how my mindset was like, I'm definitely going to get this job, and how much I really wanted it, I kind of took a little bit of break from applying for jobs. So like straight after uni, it wasn't like fully burnt out, but it was like, do you know when you just do a lot of things all at once?
Yeah.
It felt like I really needed a break. So I actually took a break. I went home in Somali, which is where I'm from. I went to see my grandma, and I spent some time over there. And then once I came back, then I started applying for jobs. So I think I applied for jobs from November till December, and then at the end of December I found out that I got a role, and then I took another trip to celebrate that. But like, it didn't, if you consider the time where I actually consistently was looking for a job, it took me about 2 months. But one thing I would definitely suggest is try and set some time if you're in your third year or your fourth year, whatever, however many years it takes for your degree to finish. Take some time to actually consider what kind of roles that you want to apply for, and start applying from September onwards, because there's a lot of graduate schemes and stuff that you can consider. I think for me, I was more living in that moment and working throughout the year rather than thinking a little bit on the future, because that was my original plan to get into that role. But yeah, broaden your horizon. And then the second question that you asked was what recruiters were looking for. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the role. I think I was lucky because I dipped myself in a lot of different things. I knew how I tailored my application based on the role that I was applying for. I think if you're planning to just send a CV and you really want a job, I wouldn't suggest that. Just like your a normal version of your CV, I wouldn't suggest that at all. Like, make it tailored to the specific role, or at least the industry that you want to work into, because there's key things that they'll be looking out for, and also seek advice. I'm not a recruiter, so I'm not too sure exactly what they're looking for, but I know I was in the right direction. So like, showcase your skills, and you don't have to say it in like massive paragraphs, but just like a small sentence where you are stating what you experienced and how has that been like implemented within the organization or whatever experience that you've come from. I think that would be some of the suggestions I'd give.
Yes, I agree, definitely. Now I forgot the question already.
Also,
which bit have we not fully covered? Because I don't want to repeat what Haleem said.
so how about you answer the question, like, how do you handle rejection and
That's a good one.
and tackling graduate depression, or alternatively, like, how to increase engagement with recruiters? Also, any advice in terms of like employability and skills?
Yeah, no, I feel you. So just a bit of context. So when I graduated well, July 2017, but I was still working in Boots. So what I did was, I couldn't find a job. Like, I started a few months. So I was that person who was looking at stuff, but because biology is such a generic topic, such a generic degree, I found it quite difficult to find a job, because I didn't know what I wanted to do either. So I was applying for everything, and I didn't do what Haleema said. I didn't tailor my application back then, because a lot of the time you would end up just applying. You have to do the full application and then you add your CV. It wasn't just, I don't know if it's changed now, but it wasn't just send your CV and a cover letter and that's it. It's like, send an application plus your CV plus your cover letter. But I would say that would have saved me a lot of time if I had done the whole tailoring the CV, having those buzzwords that's in the job description, and I think that will make you stand out, because now 80% of the time these organizations, especially big organizations, are using automated filtering of applications, because they get so many at a time. So that means that if you're not meeting X amount of keywords in your CV or your cover letter, depending on what it is that you're applying for, you might be put onto the no pile, even if you actually are meeting the criteria in other ways. So that is definitely a tip to help, whether that's for recruiters or for hiring managers specifically. I've never gone through a recruitment agency, but I worked, so my job straight after uni, after doing my working at Boots, I couldn't find anything, so I didn't necessarily settle, but I took the first thing that did come my way, which was not for Queen Mary, but it was in the Queen Mary School of Medicine, Dentistry or whatever, and it was a clinical trials job, bank, 0-hour contract. I used to work 60 hours a week, guys, don't ask, we'll get to that at one point in my life. But I took that and I ended up being employed through an agency, even though it wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be employed by the organization, but the agency was the one paying us and stuff like that. And I realized when I spoke to them, because they are called SRG, the recruitment agency, that they are always looking for people. So once you get known by a recruitment agency, and they know your skills, they'll come back to you. And I feel like, Ilham, that's what you've been doing recently. And I realized I didn't take advantage of recruiters per se, but now you guys have the breadth of LinkedIn. LinkedIn wasn't popping 4 or 5 years ago. It was there, but it didn't have like the proper job function. You can apply like that. Now you can, like, this is what I've been doing, guys. Have I been applying for a single job where I have to fill out a full application form unless they tell you to do it? No. Yeah, I don't know how that's going because it takes time for turnaround, but LinkedIn is beautiful. You can see when you've submitted it, you can see if somebody's viewed your profile, but you can also see if they've viewed your application, downloaded your CV, all of that stuff. Like, it was only a few weeks ago where I had a DM from a hiring manager at university abroad. You know, I don't think I would have even gotten to that if they hadn't seen my LinkedIn page, because I feel like they're so tired of seeing CVs and stuff like that, that having a LinkedIn page that's set, and I would say even if you're in university right now, get on it. If I didn't start building my LinkedIn page in that second year of uni, I would have given up a long time ago, because I understand that it's quite overwhelming to start fresh now. But I would say if you can and you have the time, build it. That's literally your online CV. But again, I feel like I'm answering my questions on the next section, so I'm gonna pass it to you, Ilham.
Yeah, so I guess my journey is quite current, and I think a lot of us are going through that same thing of like applying and getting rejected, which is absolutely normal. And I think what sort of helped me was the fact that firstly, if you have a free trial for LinkedIn Premium, please use it. And I think we might talk about it more in depth later on. But sort of once I did my internship, a lot of people do get jobs from their internship, and my one was quite specific in telling me that, you know, we don't offer a job after you intern. But initially, before that, for some context, I was working in Amazon. Yes, the warehouse. I worked in logistics. It wasn't the greatest, but then I finished my dissertation, and like by chance I got this internship. And I think where all our stories sort of align, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is a lot of things do happen by chance, and it's a lot of trusting the process. So yeah, I did my internship, and what I learned from that was, because I worked in private equity, and a lot of people are very much like, people believe in the skills. You don't need to have the skills, you just need to believe in yourself and the fact that you could have these skills in the future. And that's a lot of what I've been practicing, and I guess why I'm so lucky in the fact that like I've really only started applying to jobs in like mid-October, but it's been a very fruitful process in terms of, even if I do get rejected, I'm getting like constructive feedback on what to do next. Or maybe if I do get rejected, I'm getting passed on from one person to another to speak to someone else about like something that's more suited. But that's part of that application journey, and it's very taxing in terms of putting in a lot of effort, putting in a lot of application. But once you sort of have your initial CV done, the tailoring part is really with buzzwords. And I would recommend like this website called Resin Mold, and it's basically the global sort of formula for like CVs, because a lot of CVs aren't really read anymore at all. It's put through that system, the AS. Someone's going to correct me.
So I can send the link in the
chat. Right, yeah. So I'll get the website up and put it in the chat. So yeah, we'll put it in the chat so you guys can use it, and it's a free template, and it uses that sort of system. It tells you what buzzwords you need, the percentage that your CV is at in terms of like if you're going to get through the first round or whatnot. And I think that's like they've got a free service, so you might as well use it, and also take advantage of what your university has. A lot of people from university, once they graduate, they do get employed, so people do keep these connections, so utilize that. And your university might later on even refer you to like a recruitment agency that can help you out further. And I don't want to drag out this process, but if anybody has any questions in terms of employability, is there anything that you're struggling on particularly, you can write it in the chat and maybe we can answer those questions for you. And if not, like, we'll be happy to sort of share those resources. And maybe if you have any questions and you're too shy to ask, we might just end up answering it in the networking and like work-life balance section. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand to speak, or
well, if you want to speak, if it's easier. It's a small room, guys. Nobody's going to say anything. It is being recorded, so you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. And if not, please feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll try and get back to it. I'm going to give it a few seconds because I did have a question. Somebody DM'd me, but I'll give the floor the chance first, and then I'll ask the question, if anything, on behalf of someone who was here, but they couldn't stay for long. Oh, there you go. You've got your first question. How do you balance working full-time and studying? I mean, we have our first question. I forgot, it's not just you, fam.
Yeah. Should I start by answering that question? I was very silly. I did 40 something hours and my third year and an internship, which I don't really know how I did it. It's not the greatest thing for your mental health, but again, like I would say, if you're going to have to be in that predicament, because a lot of the times it's easy to say prioritize your mental health, prioritize this and that, but sometimes it's almost impossible to do it. So I'd say remember what your goals are, which is like really difficult. But what I do sometimes, like I'll write a note, screenshot it, and keep it as my screensaver, so I'm seeing it all the time. What are my goals? Why am I doing this? Where is it going to get me? And also, you're going to need time off at one point because you are going to get burnt out, Hafsa. And I hope that's not the case for you, that you actually have to work full time. But if that is the case, I'd say always prioritizing what's the most important thing. Have a calendar. I'm more of like a paper and pen person, but people use digital calendars, which I assume would be much easier. But yeah, like have it spaced out, know when your assignments are, make sure your assignment doesn't clash with work, because I remember doing a Zoom presentation while at work, which wasn't the smartest thing. But yeah, does anybody else have something to add toward that question?
Haleem, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, add to what Ilham was saying, is Google Calendar was my best friend. Like third year, it was my best friend. Like I was able to kind of categorize it in colors. So my dissertation had a color. The different types of work I was doing, because I was doing multiple ones, had different colors. My lectures had different colors. So having that separated and knowing when my deadlines was, the red ones were always my deadlines. So I always had two deadlines. I had the actual deadline and then a week before that, just so that you have a bit of time to kind of review it and that you can check things through. But like Ilham was saying, just like manage your time really, really well and focus on what is important. Like, is it the studying or is it the working? You can always take a break from work if needs be, when you are in times where you're doing assignments or you've got an exam and stuff. Whereas with the study, you can't really take that time off. But balance that. If you can balance that well and manage your time well, I think that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I was gonna add, don't try and do too much. Like I remember, I think I had 3. I was actually mad. It was as if like first year you have 1 job, second year you have 2 jobs, third year you have 3 jobs. So although I didn't have like a quote unquote full-time job, I think my studying hours versus my working hours the ratio was a bit bad.
Yeah.
I would say like don't do too much if you know you can't take, and especially in third year, it's like that is the year you should be focusing. And I was obviously not smart. I was just like, yeah, you can do it. And I was also doing a work placement. What was I thinking? Work placement, dissertation, 2-3 jobs. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I was saying it was not a smart idea doing that. But obviously, like Ilham said, if it happens, it happens. But I was gonna say, with the pandemic, and I think like this is where me and Ilham had a different experience. I was doing this like this last year. Well, this last year was for Ilham. It was during the pandemic, right? That we were doing a final year. So I feel like you were able to get away with it a bit more than if you were working full time and not attending classes physically. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. So it depends on what your situation is. Are we talking about now, where if your classes are still, I don't know, 80% online and 20% in person, or completely online, then maybe. But again, studying online is not easy. I know that for a fact.
Like he's working full time and doing his third year of uni, and I'm like,
yeah,
I applaud you, like legit.
Yeah, so it depends. It really depends. But if you don't have to do it, maybe there could be times where you could reduce your hours, or like you don't want to take your annual leave during those times. But if you have to, like make sure that you do. And if there's a case where you have another situation happening at the same time, to like know that your university should provide you with some sort of accommodations in terms of time. If there's extenuating circumstances, I was also going to say, make sure you take advantage of that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's your first line of defense in that sense, but if it happens, it happens. So make sure you do it and don't feel shy, because that's what I didn't do during my master's. I got really ill. Your girl was still going to uni. I wasn't working, but my master's was literally 5 days a week. It was really intense. And it wasn't until my pastor tutor was like to me, what are you doing? Like there's a reason why, you know, extenuating circumstances and deferrals exist. So make sure, like, if worse comes to worse, you do take advantage of those things. But yeah, I'm just conscious of time and I don't want to keep people for too much longer. I had one more question, Ilham, because Sophia's going to kill me if I don't ask you this. She had a question about your year abroad, and I think maybe other people, if they are currently in that situation, they wanted to know about access to funding. So she said, in terms of studying abroad, how easy was it for you to be able to be supported to go abroad? Because I know you said you went for free. So does that mean your university provided you with the experience and you just went, or was it something that you had to seek and say, look, I need you to pay for me to go?
So the first sort of trip to Malaysia was that was free. That was on a project. But on my actual year abroad, I guess that depending on where you want to go, like the funding gets a bit complicated. If you want to go to like Northern Europe, there is a lot of funding available, but it's extremely competitive. In my case, I guess Southeast Asia is quite cheap. The funding available exists at uni, so there's always a uni. The bursary, like that's one fund that's for usually the disadvantaged students, but that's also topped with a year abroad fund from the university. Your department should also have a fund available. If not, ask them about it. Like I asked them for my uni, I asked about mine, and because there was no one else going in the same region that I was going to in Malaysia, I got double the funding because no one was going there and they had the funds available. So I would say always reach out. There are funding outside of uni, so if your parents earn above a certain amount, I know that Santander does a fund where they pay for all your flights. HSBC also has something, so the banks, like check your bank that you're a student banker with. I'd say also check student finance, because student finance also has a bursary available on top of the loan that you can take. There is, I believe, an Islamic fund within an Islamic organization, but I need to double check that because I did not apply for that. Pardon?
What, the Aziz Foundation or another one?
I think there's another one.
Yeah.
I'm just going to Google it.
There's also something called the Black Heart Foundation, and they support, not necessarily for funding to go abroad, but also for like degrees, resources, that kind of stuff. I'll drop in here, but I know a few people off Twitter who did their postgrad with it, but they also support people whilst they're studying, like in their undergrad. So I'll definitely try and put that in this chat for anybody who's interested, and I'll also let Sophia know. But I told her to make sure she listens to this later since her Wi-Fi is not great.
Yeah, and I would say like start saving from like whenever, just in case. Like you can never you can never oversave, to be honest, because then you could do whatever you want with the money. But start saving, have a savings plan. I'd say try your best not to borrow money if you don't have to. Don't put yourself don't make yourself do that. But yeah, there is funding available. Ask, don't be afraid to ask. Also, your lead on your year abroad should know any other fundings that he could help you sponsor, because I believe if you want to go to like North America, which is much more expensive, and you have to like be able to prove a stupid amount of money, they would be able to help you out with that. Yeah.
Okay, just because I'm conscious of time, I think we've also addressed some of the questions for the next section. I can't speak English right now, for the work-life balance, networking, etc. And we've kind of addressed the first question, which is about how do you manage your time well. Obviously, don't take on too much that you can chew.
I think for the mental health one thing I would suggest is for you to find some sort of hobby or activity that you enjoy that's good for your own emotional well-being, whether that's going for a walk. For me, it was photography. I really like going out on photo walks, so I'd get my phone or my camera out and I would just do a little trip, whether that's in the park or to the city centre, and that was my way of relieving my stress. So I think it's important for you to find what is what you're able to do to relieve that stress, whether that's going go-karting or doing crazy activities, whatever is it that you feel comfortable doing. And that's one way you can look after your emotional well-being, and always prioritize that. Always have time dedicated to looking after your emotional well-being. But yeah, I guess it can be hard, especially when you are in university or when you're working, because you are at such a fast pace, and that can sometimes just overtake your time and you don't have really any energy. But I'd say is try and dedicate some time on a weekly basis or even on a daily basis, whether that's you doing meditation in the morning, for people who are Muslim and are praying, or even other religions, using prayer can be a useful way of de-stressing yourself. So whatever works for you, that would be one of my suggestions.
Yeah, Ilham, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
I was just gonna ask, like, so how do you guys utilize your networks?
Do you know what? My networks are the reason why I'm where I am right now. Like, I think if I didn't put myself out there and said, oh, can you help me, or can you tell me more about this, like, there would have been the switch between even like from back in when I was doing my undergrad, I asked one of the graduate teaching assistants, I can't find work experience, it's really hard to find lab work, can you point me in the right direction? He was like, yeah, sure, my wife works at the Francis Crick Institute in London, just go and see her. I met up with her, did it that year for a couple of days, just in second year before we had to do that stuff formally. Couldn't find anything for my work placement the following year because it's so competitive. Did it with her for, I think, a month, but on and off. So I did it like I had to do like 25 days, but I could do it over the year. I did it like that. Then my job after uni, not the one in the clinical trials, but the formal graduate job that I got, which was the actual graduate teaching assistant that I said I had support from during my degree. So it's in the same department in my old university. My supervisor was like to me, Amran, why don't you apply? And I said, cool. And then I did it for a year and 9 months. Then I was in the midst of doing some work with them. I didn't know what to do. They were like, well, you need to do research. If you want to become a lecturer, la, 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 this is your path. Didn't like it. Was really interested in public health. One of the lecturers had just started up the public health masters like 2 years before that. She was like, Amran, you should apply, but apply outside of the university because then you won't have to work and study at the same time. So they offered to do a free master's, but not a taught one. A research one didn't want to do it. And she was the one who told me to apply to Imperial. I would not have applied to Imperial if it wasn't for her. And I'm not saying I got in because of her. It's just that she was like, why don't you just do it? And then literally a month before the application deadline was due, no, a month before starting, I applied. Don't ask how. And I did it. And then literally the job I have now, I did some freelancing work for my old boss. He applied for a grant with my current boss. He was like, oh, there's a project manager position. Apply. Was I going to apply before that? No. And now I'm a band 7 project manager in the NHS. So it's really important, like really, really important. Like just, it's hard to put yourself out there, but it's now or never. If you don't do it, you don't know what you can get out of these people.
I definitely agree with you on that, Amran. I think one thing I wanted to add is also like the current role that I'm in is through networking. So my manager at the union, she works within the local authority, and I had mentioned to her in a conversation that I want to switch careers. Just in terms of a bit of background, I was actually in mental health prior to this current role. So I was working with the young people who are kind of struggling with their emotional well-being. So I mentioned it to her in a discussion, and she was like, oh, there's actually going to be a post, an EDI coordinator post within my local authority. Why don't you apply for it? You'd be amazing. You did all that work when you were at the union. And I applied for it. I didn't even let her know that I was applying for it. I just said, oh, I'll be interested in applying for it. I applied for it, did the interview, managed to get the role, and I shared that news with her. And now she's like my colleague. And it just goes to show, like, also keep connected with those kind of people. So if you have a good connection with any lecturers or any of your previous managers within workplaces, they can put you in touch, or they can let you know, because I found out before it was even posted externally. So they posted it internally first, and then I applied when it was available externally. So yeah, that's one suggestion I'd also give to.
Ilham, do you want to add as well?
Yeah, I was, yeah, essentially like even sort of, as I said on my year abroad, I had done some work with them initially, which just smoothened my process for the first semester. And even getting whatever internships I did before, and even my most recent one, I got it because my friend was literally like, oh, there's this opportunity that's being advertised, and I think you'd be good for it. And so I literally applied, and that's how I got it. And a lot of the times, like, the people around you are so happy for you to succeed, and I think you should take advantage of those networks that you have. And like, I think Amran will talk further about LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is such a amazing resource once you hack it, because the sort of the systems or the softwares are quite simple. It's unlike Instagram or all of that. Like LinkedIn, as long as your name becomes popular in terms of like putting yourself forth in different opportunities, doing talks, going to events, posting it, putting it out there, I think because your name becomes synonymous with all these sorts of things, your name would naturally just pop up to recruiters. And I think, yeah, definitely utilize the people you know in real life, and also the people online. And that's sort of what's happening for me currently, and that can only talk from my current journey, where like recruiters are actually reaching out to me on LinkedIn to ask if I'm interested in the opportunities, which just makes that application process much easier for yourself, because after going through 3 to 4 years of university, you don't want to then start, obviously you're going to have to start applying, but the process is eased when there are people just reaching out saying, hey, would you be interested in this? If not, check out this. And even though recruiters might not be doing this intentionally, they're sort of carving you a way through. So like, if you get someone reaching out to you about something you're not interested in, you don't need to necessarily, you know, turn the person down. You can turn the opportunity down, but the person would always be happy to redirect you. Yeah. And I think Amran could talk much more about like how to utilize LinkedIn in terms of like securing a job role, networking, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ilham, I feel like you're doing a great job already, because I think we both tapped into LinkedIn, not recently, but like we realized that you could really use it to your advantage outside of just having a profile.
Yeah.
And for me, it took me a long time to realize this, because I had LinkedIn all those years ago. It was more for me to stay in touch with people, you know, update things once in a while. But now I'm out here posting as well. Like, this is the other thing, because obviously you've got a CV, you've got this information, and people are now utilizing social media as a way of looking at you. But if you have a A1 LinkedIn page, they don't even need to look at a Twitter account or an Instagram account. I would suggest making a professional Twitter account. And I only say that because I've met so many people through that professionally as well, even though it started through Clubhouse. But I utilize my Twitter page as a means of recruiting for the study that I'm managing. And I recruited 60% of our participants through Twitter. And I think it would have been a bit awkward if I was using my usual account to do them things, because I'm sure people would associate my name, my email address with whatever I've been tweeting, you know, 10 years ago. But that's beside the point. But I would say a lot of places now ask for like LinkedIn pages in your applications as well. So even if you're not necessarily utilizing LinkedIn as a way of applying for jobs directly, you can still have that as a way of being seen. Like, make sure you have a look at your settings. Is it private? Is it public? Is it open only to your connections? And if you're applying for a job where they ask you for your LinkedIn and you put it in there, make sure that you adjust your settings as well. Even if you're a private person, no problem. But I would even open it up for like a couple of weeks if you think your LinkedIn page will help. And it will if you build it. It's literally like the way you would update your CV, you update that, but you have a chance to, you know, have a proper personal summary. You're not really limited by page numbers. You can talk about any courses you've done. Now also LinkedIn have this thing where when you're applying for jobs, you can add the skills and you can see what pool of the percentage you fall in with applicants. And I think I only noticed this now that I upgraded to premium only for a month, because I ain't got that kind of money right now. But for this month, because I know I'm applying, I was just like, Ilham was like, just do it, go gold. I said, sure. And I've been seeing my applications like, oh, you fall in the top 10% or you don't fall in it. And even if you don't have the premium, when you're applying for jobs, because I never used to use job the easy apply option on LinkedIn. But even if you're using LinkedIn as a way to search for jobs, it's better than Indeed. It's better than all of these other job pages, because there you get lost in the source. With LinkedIn, at least, you can like filter so much. You can keep it broad. It'll tell you how many search hits you have. You can be like, oh, I only want it in this location, or I want to look worldwide, or I want to see, like, you can even filter it by experience level. I wouldn't recommend that though, because this is something I've noticed with a lot of people. Don't limit yourself. If it says senior, look at what the requirements are. If you hit 80% of the requirements, why don't you apply? You don't ever have to hit 100%, guys. Let me tell you this first. There's a question here already who said, how do you build a LinkedIn account? Rev Julia, I've got your details now, so I'm gonna hit you up offline as well. But what I would say, I think, because again, I did LinkedIn such a long time ago, but let me just at least post the link to the website in general. And I think as soon as it asks you to sign up, it actually walks you through it now. So we can start with that, don't worry. But that's literally like the new way forward when it comes to applying. I'm gonna let one of you guys speak now, because I've been going around in circles now. And we're also past the time, but it's okay, right, Nicole? 5 minutes.
5 more minutes. I just wanted to add also, one way that I use LinkedIn was connecting with professionals and actually having meetings with them. So when I knew that I wanted to go back into EDI, I actually connected with one of the professionals that I already connected a couple of years prior. And I said, oh, would it be possible for us to have a meeting? And in that meeting, I kind of asked questions on like how he got into the role, and how his experience was like, any key things that I needed to do when I was applying for roles like the role that he was in. So I feel like that's also another way of you connecting with professionals. So if you see a job role that you want to apply for, connect with a professional that has that job. And then I'm sure if you message them, they'll be more than happy to help you. They will literally you might be booking a 15-minute call, but it'll end up becoming an hour. That's 100%. That's happened to me so many times. And they are willing to help you. They're willing to support you through that application, but also like give you further advice and support on how you can get those kind of roles. So LinkedIn, best option. That's what I definitely say to you guys.
I was also going to add, I realized, because we posted it on the old one, we've posted our pages as well. I'm not saying we're perfect examples, but like, feel free to connect with us, have a look at what we put on there. And I definitely say shout out to Ilham, because Ilham, I know what she's been doing, but she's got the recruiters hooking her up, not like her trying to find them, they find her. Yeah. And I think LinkedIn is probably one of the easiest way these days to headhunt for people. So yeah, I would definitely say if you can get on there, if you haven't already, and even if you have an account but you don't really utilize it, but you're getting to that stage where you're either about to start looking for a job, a new job, you're graduating, whatever, it also saves you time once you've set it up. Let me tell you that.
Yeah,
it saves you time and effort once it's there, because all you need to do is add stuff in the future. And you might be doing things completely unrelated to what you may want to do, but it's still a good place to put it, because you might not be able to put all of that information on your actual CV. So, and you also are able to upload your CV when you're applying for jobs through LinkedIn. Someone asked a question, so
question is out of topic. How would you set up a community work for families with SEND needs? Have you guys got any background of setting up community work?
No, but what I can say, if you want to start, if it's something starting from scratch, it might be worth actually connecting with grassroots community organizations. So Ubele is actually a good place to start, because they do a lot of work and they work with a lot of grassroots as well. Special education needs. Yeah. I don't have any personal experiences with SEND needs children, but I think there's a lot of organizations who could support. Drop us a DM on our LinkedIn pages as well, and we can connect you with other people. But I definitely say start with Ubele, the organization that helped incubate this Young Emerging Leaders group, and I'll drop you the link.
For like your local organizations that are currently doing that, professionals that are already in that sector. That would be another suggestion, and find them through LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And your local health watchers as well. Your local council, they might already be working with grassroots on the ground as well. A lot of these organizations are interlinked, so definitely check them out as well, Fatima. I hope we kind of helped at least to point you in the right direction of where to look. And if you also Google like in your locality, the organizations working with this particular population, then you might be able to get like a list as well. Because if you just Google in general, you're going to get everything in the UK. But if you want to do something locally, I think that's your best bet. And local authorities have directories of their own organizations. So I think that's a great place to start, wherever you're based, London or not.
Yeah. I just want to say, maybe off the back of what you guys were saying earlier, sort of the person that recruited me for my internship, she was absolutely amazing, and she always said like, I guess more generally as women, we sort of hesitate when we see job requirements and we don't fit all 25 of those requirements. But firstly, put your title, what you wish your title would be, on your LinkedIn page. So put that in there, because that's what you are and that's what you want to be. So put it in, and apply whether it's mid or to senior level, because at the end of the day, and I think Amran can sort of talk to this much better, soft skills are transferable across industries and across sort of hierarchies, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. It's very, very difficult. I guess I'm going through that process currently, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And other days I'll take myself to an aesthetic cafe and try and get something done. So yeah, change up your environments. And yeah, if you have any more questions, send it to us privately if that's what you prefer. And yeah, like, just keep your connections close, is something that I would always say, and the Ubele initiative is doing some amazing work toward that.
Yeah, do you have any final words, Haleem or Ilham? Because I'm just conscious of time and I don't want to keep people for longer than they need to. Yeah, anything you guys want to add?
Just lastly, guys, you can get in contact with us. Feel free. Don't, like, you literally
be shy.
Don't be shy at all. Like, we are humans as well, and we fully understand everything that you guys have been going through, and that's why we really wanted to speak about our experience, so that we can help you guys achieve your goals. And we're all in roles that we like, but that's not to say we won't change our mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. And also, there's nothing wrong with you being undecided. I think that's one thing I'd also want to share. Like, you don't have to know what you want to do. You can just trial things out, and whatever works your way, and whatever opportunities comes your way, just take it and grasp it, and thrive and flourish as much as you can. But yeah, that's my last message.
Ilham, do you want to add?
Yeah, I was basically going to say thanks for giving us your time. Thanks for attending. Thanks for asking questions and engaging with us. Yeah, and just feel free to reach out. Like, you don't even need to say hi if you just want to add us, or you could just say hi. I don't know. It's really up to you. We just don't want you to be alone on this sort of journey into like sort of figuring out what you want. And as Halima said, like, you could always change fields, and I'm currently looking into moving into tech, and if that's something you want to talk about, feel free to reach out. But yeah, you're not alone. Thanks for engaging with us, and I'll leave Amran to give the final words.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of summed it up beautifully. And I said this before at the beginning, you know, you can't always be what you can't see. And I think we're moving towards being hopefully the future, I wouldn't say role models per se, but just the future people who are out there trying to do their little bit to change the world, change the community for the better. And we also want to give back, because some of us may have had those role models or like mentors or whatever, but we know it's difficult, but there are people out here, and that's why we did this today, to show that you know, it's not all pretty. It is difficult. The working world is hard, but I think everything we do comes with its own challenges. But I think we all know what the beauty can be like, and that's why we're doing it. And just know that we're also here, still struggling, still trying to find our feet. Like, we're not perfect. We're still trying to figure things out. The three of us are early career professionals. We've changed fields, we've studied, we've done this, we've done that. But at the same time, we're all still trying to figure out our feet, especially now that the pandemic's happened. The working world has changed from what it was. And it's how do I say it? Nothing is easy, but like the more of us who can come together to showcase, that we've all come through this, whatever it's been the last 2 years, and we are trying to still continue upwards and not sort of stagger, and we're trying to explore what we like, what we don't like. Anyway, it's really important that people like us are out here and that we're there for you, and that's why we're doing this today. So don't be shy, feel free to DM us. Haleema and Ilham, please also drop any socials that you like, connect with people, because I know LinkedIn for some people isn't like that. I dropped my Twitter in there, so feel free to find us there. And I've also dropped the Yelp Collective. If anybody's within sort of 18 to 30, I think we may be extending it to 35 now, feel free to join us. We are still taking in applications for new members, so please do that. And also follow the Ubele pages as well on Twitter, Instagram, and other platforms. I can't remember. Nicole, if you want to drop any of the socials for Ubele, please do, because I can't think of him at the top of it. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Ubele for giving us this platform. This wouldn't have been possible without them. So thank you so much for attending, and we hope that you enjoyed.